Hey everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We've got AJ with us. Hey AJ.
Hey, how you doing?
Great, great. Today I'm so excited to talk to you because we are going to talk about what to do in the first 21 days, which is kind of a time frame to build a habit. So what should people do in the first 21 days?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I work with clients, usually in the first 21 days, I like to focus on six areas like nutrition, social dynamics, definitely mindset, making the food easy. That's really important. And other key success strategies, we even like to focus on self love, believe it or not. That's one of the things that High Carb Hannah talked about in the summit, how important that was, is one of the keys to losing weight.
Hmm. Yeah, so you mentioned to start off with, you mentioned nutrition, right? So how much would you like? How much time would you spend on it? And maybe if you give a few hints of what to do.
Really, it's a lifelong learning process. Once I think you really have to focus on it the rest of your life to be successful. You can't just eat kale one day and say I'm done, right? So at least 3 days focusing on nutrition, learning about what so many of the speakers said about how starch is so important in this way of eating. When you're going to a lower fat diet, when you're cutting out all the fat and the cholesterol from animal products and oils, you're cutting out a large number of the calories. And fruits and vegetables are great. I mean, they're very healthy. We need them for their antioxidants and micronutrients and vitamins and minerals. But if that's all we eat, we're going to either need to eat an extraordinary amount of them, which is going to be difficult for people to eat enough calories just from fruits and vegetables because of their low caloric density, or we're going to need something else to put those calories in. And since we don't want to use high calorie things like and high fat things like cheese at 1600 calories a pound and oil at 4,000 calories a pound and meat at 1,000 calories a pound, we need something else. And that's the starch. And that's where the bulk of the calories comes from. And that's actually where the satiation comes from. The potatoes, the sweet potatoes, the winter squashes, the rice and the beans, all the whole grains and legumes actually that have a caloric density of 600 calories a pound. And without the starch, you won't get the satiety, you won't get the satisfaction. And so many people make the mistake of they think they're being good by just eating fruits and vegetables. And then they forego the starches. And guess what? They get hungry and then they overeat, and they usually overeat off plan when really the secret to satiety is starch.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned in the summit as well that you like greens. You love greens and you want to get them in your diet. So
Absolutely. And, listen, I didn't go from having a Coke Slurpee with 8 pumps of vanilla syrup every day of my life to eating kale for breakfast. I mean, there took some time to transition. And the truth is I didn't like them at first either. They were bitter, and I just knew how good they were for me. So I kept eating them over and over again, trying them in delicious ways, different ways to prepare them. And now it's funny because I actually crave them now. And if I don't get vegetables, especially for breakfast and greens, it's like I'm a person that's a coffee drinker that can't get caffeine. That's how much I'm in love with them now. For somebody that didn't really eat a single fruit or vegetable for 43 years, it turned out, and I didn't know this when I was starting to work with people and insisting that they eat at least 2 pounds of non-starchy vegetables a day, which by the way is only 200 calories, which is about the same amount of calories in 5 teaspoons of oil, a pound raw and a pound cooked optimally, or even more if you can. I didn't know that they contained a compound called thylakoids that were actually proven to turn off the hunger switch and make people not hungry for things like sugar, and it stopped craving. So that's why it's so important to incorporate them into your diet, especially early in the day. And again, Dr. Esselstyn would say the same thing he did on the summit for his patients with heart disease, even the ones that weren't overweight, to get them in by any greens necessary. A fistful size, he tells his patients 6 times a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 3 snacks. So the greens are really important to implement in your diet. Of all the vegetables, the leafy greens are the nutritional powerhouses.
yeah, and I also know and remember from the summit you mentioned when it comes to nutrition and especially calories that liquid calories is often overlooked. So would that be one of the points you would focus on?
Yeah, so people love to drink their calories because it's delicious to go to Starbucks and get, one of those designer coffee drinks, ice that tastes basically like a milkshake, or to have a smoothie, even a green smoothie or juices, because they're sweet, they're easy to get down. You don't have to have a lot of effort. You don't even have to chew, by the way. But the thing is liquid calories just aren't going to be favorable for weight loss for lots of reasons. One, they lack the satiety. Digestion actually begins in the mouth with a digestive enzyme called amylase, and chewing actually increases satiety, that feeling of fullness you get that tells you to stop eating. What a lot of people don't realize is when you see large portions of food on your plate, like you can do with this style of eating, as opposed to like when you're weighing and measuring your food, that already starts to increase satiety. But liquid calories, because they're basically pre-digested, the blender basically digests it for you. And when you eat your food whole instead of juiced or blended, you burn about 12, I think Dr. Lau said it was 12.5% more calories. So in other words, a green smoothie, you'll absorb 12.5% more calories from that beverage than if you had just eaten what you put in the blender of the fruits and vegetables. And definitely liquid calories from alcohol, definitely not favorable for weight loss. Absolutely. So, we want to be having most of our calories, liquid calories, coming from water. We could also have things like herbal teas, especially hibiscus tea. We can have pot liquor, which is the broth that you get from cooking vegetables. Any kind of herbal tea is fine. But we really, and this is just common sense with any weight loss program that I've ever heard about, is that we don't want to drink our calories. We want to get those stretch receptors activated by the fiber that's intact in the food and the water that's intact in the food to create this bulk. And the blender basically pre-digests it for you. We already have 32 of the best juicers and blenders right here.
Right at the beginning, you also mentioned social dynamics, right? So in terms of social dynamics, what do you mean, and what are some of the points you would look at it?
I mean, we want to find a way to build social support. It's just easier when you have a buddy or an accountability partner, and we need to learn how to deal with unsupported people, which sometimes are the very people living in your home. But there are strategies people can implement to make this a lot easier, and we need to teach them how to do this so that they can feel supported, even if the people that are their loved ones or their people living in their home aren't the ones that do that. And so it's really crucial to build community, especially if you're doing something different that you haven't done before. It really helps to see other people going through the same journey and the same process, and you can cheer each other on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mindset goes hand in hand, especially when you talk about being different.
Right. Well, that's the thing. You have to. There's an old joke. How many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is one. But the light bulb has to really want to change. If you're doing this because your doctor tells you have to, or because a family member says you better take care of this, you're probably not going to necessarily be as effective as if you have your own reason for wanting to do this, your own motivation. And Dr. Alviera on the summit talked about the why, and it can't just be a why of, well, I'm going to Cabo this summer and I want to look good in my bikini. It's got to be a little bit deeper than that for most people. She talks about the why that makes you cry, wanting to be around to walk your daughter down the aisle, or to see your grandchildren grow up and be able to get on the floor and get up after playing with them. So you need to have really a strong reason. People that don't know why they want to lose weight generally aren't as successful as those that really know the reason that they're doing this.
Yeah, and I know you teach some other important and powerful techniques, like making a commitment, maybe even publicly, or writing a letter.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great techniques. I've seen people be really successful just because they told somebody. A lot of people say, well, I failed so many times, I'm afraid to say it, but some of the people that I've seen that have been the most successful have not only made that commitment to themselves, but they've made it public. They've posted it on Facebook. They've told everybody. And then you're enlisting those other people for help and to support you. So I think that telling people what you're going to do is a great strategy, especially if you are part of a group that is like-minded and doing the same thing. There's strategies where you write yourself a letter to your future self. It can be very inspiring and motivating, and teaching people, that plateaus and setbacks, this is normal. This is not a crisis. This is part of the process. And again, just having the frame of mind that this is not a diet, but this is a lifestyle change. And that's really important, because if you treat it like a diet, then you're going to go on it and you're going to go off it. And it has to be a lifestyle change. If you want to see your life change, you have to be willing to change your lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's so inspiring to know that there are techniques out there that actually help you along the way. So speaking of techniques, I mean, you mentioned making food easy and cooking. So So
Right.
what do you mean by that? What are some of the techniques?
One of the things I like to teach people are obviously there's certain equipment that's going to really help you get a healthy meal on the table much faster, and different cooking techniques that are some are easier than others, because if people have healthy food ready, they generally will eat it, assuming there's not also all kinds of other high calorie, high fat, hyper palatable food in the same environment. So we got to get people to either do some kind of batch cooking so that the food will be ready, because there's an old saying that preparation trumps motivation. So we've got to not only not have the unhealthy food so easily accessible, but have the healthy food accessible, either by learning how to do some batch cooking techniques, having somebody else make it for you, or even ordering from a whole food plant-based food delivery service like Mama Says, at least until you can learn how to make this food easy and delicious. And also teaching people how to create flavor without all the fat, and taste without all the salt, and sweetness without the sugar. This is important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I had the pleasure of eating at your house, and you're a master of that. So thank you for all the good food. um,
Absolutely.
and obviously moving forward, also I know. So if we have the 21 days and break it down, about 3 or 4 like days maybe on learning to cook might not be enough, but it's maybe a start. And I know you like to keep your food simple, so maybe that's the motivation for everyone out there as well. So when it comes to key success strategies, what are some that you would mention that people would have to implement in those first?
One of the ones that seems to work for everybody that's been successful is cleaning up their environment. Now, that's not to say that if you can't or won't clean up your environment, you won't be successful. But I will tell you that every successful person I've met or worked with that has lost anywhere between 100 and 300 pounds did clean up their environment. And if you can't clean it up to the degree where you don't have any junk food around, clean it up to the degree where it at least is livable. So, in other words, if you have family members that refuse to cooperate or eat healthfully, and they won't support you, instead of having their food right at eye level when you open the refrigerator, move it to a higher shelf or a lower shelf. Same thing with the cabinets. Maybe get another set of cabinets or a spare refrigerator, but make your environment as conducive as possible to your success. Your environment is either going to support your recovery or support your addiction. And so if you can't clean it 100%, clean it to the best you can. Maybe putting their junk food in brown paper bags, so that when you open the refrigerator, you don't, or you open the freezer, you don't see the ice cream, you see a brown paper bag. So these are different techniques we'll teach them, and we'll explain why it is so important to have a clean environment, or as clean of an environment as you can muster.
Yeah, and I know also that you teach techniques that are actually being used at True North, like meal sequencing and so forth. So
And those things are really good, especially if people are at plateaus. That really can help, and especially if people aren't getting in enough of the vegetables to fight the cravings. There's just so many things that we can teach people as far as meal timing. I mean, so many of the experts talked about what they felt was best for weight loss and longevity. But again, a person is going to have to find what works for them and their schedule. Some people are shift workers. They work at night. They might not be able to eat and sleep the same times as other people. So we have to work within what somebody's life is and make this doable so that it's easy. The more we can automate this, the more that we can automate our batch cooking and our meal prep and our exercise, the more that it can become automatic, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, and I remember you and Dr. Scott Stahl on the summit talking about leading with love, and you mentioned self-love at the beginning of the video. So maybe share a bit of what are some of the practical things that people would do in that regard.
Well, just when you make the effort to take care of yourself through proper nutrition, through movement, that's an act of love, if you ask me. If you're eating unhealthy food, that's not an act of self-love. And so the more we can get good food in you and teach you things like stress management techniques, so that you feel that you can cope with the things that are occurring to you. This is all self-love. Taking even 5 minutes a day to meditate, that's an act of self-love. Teaching people affirmations that they can use, especially if things are difficult. Those are things that can really help. And you don't wait until you lose weight to love yourself. You do it now. You love yourself right now. You actually, in many ways, just love yourself then. If criticizing yourself what it was effective, then everyone would be thin, and that doesn't work. So we've got to start where we are with what we know, and then each day try to do a little bit better and build on it. So that's my feeling, is instead of thinking of this as like, oh my God, they're taking away everything, for me, I'll never have any pleasure. No, you're actually going to learn to have more pleasure in life when you are in a body that is the right size for you, and when you're free of diseases, and also when you love yourself. And so even if you don't make a dietary change, I would still recommend starting to love yourself right now, because that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, and you definitely don't have to hate your new lifestyle, because I know you teach people how to navigate restaurant menus and
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of Shada, one of the most successful clients I've had, who's maintained 120-pound weight loss for 7 years now. She goes to restaurants all the time. I don't care for restaurants because my food is more delicious and more plentiful and cheaper at home. But man, she travels all over the world. She has never had a problem. So that's one thing we can teach is people how to navigate menus, and how to actually ask for what you need, whether it's from your family members or from the waiter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, I mean, for everyone listening right now, there is obviously a ton of notes, and we're going at a rapid speed because this is a short video. But I know Chef AJ has something special planned for you where she actually can help you implement those things. Maybe AJ, you can
Yeah,
talk a little bit about it.
so we got, I don't know how many emails you got, Toby, but I probably got upwards of 5,000, and I'm still answering them from the summit, where so many people wanted the next step, the next step. And even though I have other programs, the next step for somebody that's just starting out is going to be different from somebody that's been doing this for a while. So I wanted to create almost a basic course, if you will, where people that really were not completely immersed in, and this could be for somebody that is also more advanced, because we're going to do step-by-step strategies every day in the 21 days. They're going to get like a bite-sized module. It's going to be a good chunk of information where we're going to focus on one task. They're going to get a daily inspirational email from me, so that each day we can work on something to move us closer towards our goal, so that we can manifest that why that makes us cry. And I wanted to be able to answer people's questions, because we know from previous courses that people often have a lot of questions. And I'm the kind of person that, even though I try to keep things to an hour, if people are willing to stay on with me, like in one of these videos, you and I have done courses together where it was 2.5 hours till I got the questions answered. So what it's going to be is it's 21 days, but that includes 4 live video coaching sessions. And if you can't make it live, it's going to be recorded, so you can watch it afterwards as many times as you want. But that's where you'll get all your questions answered, either live, or maybe if you can't make the live, then you'll submit them in advance. And I know people were saying that they needed some kind of group support. So we're going to give them a private Facebook group for this course, and it's going to be led by one of my most successful coaches of all time. Is one of my certified coaches, who's just brilliant at this and has had so much weight loss success herself, and is just the master of food prep and batch cooking. And so for the 21 days, everyone will be able to interact, support each other, maybe find an accountability partner if they need one, and they can certainly continue after the program's over. But we felt that 21 days is a good time to start a habit. You can't really necessarily build a habit completely in 21 days, but it's enough time to start implementing some of these changes to move you closer towards your goal, and learn some things that are going to help you long term on your journey to optimal health and weight loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have a link under the video for people who want to find out more. But just like to wrap up, because you've worked with 2,000 plus clients already personally, so what are some of the changes that they have experienced in just 3 weeks? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have run 3-week programs in person actually for close to 8 years now, and it's amazing that even in that short amount of time, people can still lose weight. People can still get off their medication for things like diabetes, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, high cholesterol. It's incredible how the body, when given the right tools, can actually heal.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I love it. And I know you have so many success stories to share, and maybe we can add a few names and pictures on the following pages. And yeah, any last words for people out there wondering what to do
Yeah,
next?
I just think, just if you feel like you can't do everything, don't let that be the reason that you don't do anything. People always want to wait for another time to start, and the time to start is now. Do something. make an investment in your health. It's 3 weeks. It's an experiment, like Dr. Lyle says. If it doesn't work, and the truth is it's never not worked when people have done it, you can always go back to doing what you're doing. So I would say give it a try. I mean, what have you got to lose other than maybe the excess weight and things like that?
Yeah, perfect, perfect. Can't wait. Thank you so much, and I'll I can't wait to visit you again. Hopefully
All
one day soon.
right. Me too.